Welcome to GMC, Dan, and thank you for introducing yourself. Okay, so you mentioned here you have a problem with warming up, or rather how to structure your warming up time and how to be smart about it and not just fool around, play around with the guitar. So I think I get the situation. It's typically easier if we get to see your playing and more specifics about exactly where you want to take your playing and where you're at. But still, it seems pretty obvious to me here that you're basically, you enjoy playing the guitar and having a fun time jamming around with it. And what you really want to get to is the playing time where you can play the tunes you know and the licks and the riffs and whatnot. But before that, you're trying to be structured, and in order to make progress, you want to have like a productive warm-up session that is gonna allow you to explore new stuff and not be stuck in a rut, basically. And that's very smart of you, so all kudos to you for thinking that way. So there are a couple of ways to look at this, and since I don't know the specifics of your situation, I'm just going to give you some general pointers that hopefully you can find useful. I also know that several of the other guys are helping you out, so I think it's a good thing if I'm not too specific, so you don't get a lot of conflicting information there. But when we warm up, typically and hopefully, when you start the session out, you're somewhat clear in your brain so you can focus. We need to sort of acknowledge that and realize that that is precious time, in the beginning of the session where we are most focused. And it's actually recommended to take breaks pretty often whatever you're trying to learn or study. So I think there's a recommendation to take a break every 20 or 30 minutes just so that you can constantly be focused and you can be on top of yourself. So this is valid for guitar playing too, and I often find that the first 20 minutes are super important because that's, how should I say, that's when my sort of body and hands and arms are fresh. I haven't really started straining or I'm sort of new for the day, and it feels, when I touch the guitar, it feels like it's the first time of the day. So what this helps me accomplish for me personally, it's easier for me, I find, to be relaxed in the beginning of a session, and it's easier for me to slow down a little bit more. When I'm not warmed up, it seems my body, it's natural for my body to not try to push speed. Because this is a sort of disease many of us guitarists have. We're constantly trying to push speed when we really shouldn't, for various reasons. It's harder to learn new things, it's harder to play cleanly and controlled, and a lot of times people don't want to hear fast guitar either, That perhaps the exception would be your, internet pals, but for most part, the slower you play, the better it's going to be. So there are plenty of reasons not to speed your guitar playing up. And especially when learning new things, and I think that's what you want to accomplish during your warm-up session there. So what I do is I try to define my problem areas, and that's something I do maybe on a weekly basis. For example, one of the problem areas I'm working on now are more stretchy chords, and I have a little problem playing them cleanly. Obviously with a distorted sound it's not going to be clean, but you get the point. I often find myself getting those kind of noises. I've gone through the same process as everybody. We're trying to sort of reposition our fingers, see what happens, and after a while I reach a conclusion, this is going to be hard. And then I start sort of questioning the foundation of what I'm doing, and I'm realizing that, hey, I'm pretty strained. I've spent a lot of years learning not to be too strained when doing whatever, legato stuff, but I haven't done it for chords, so I need to do the same thing. So I've identified my problems, or this specific problem, so what I'll do in my warm-up sessions, I'll put just one finger at a time with a specific chord voicing, and see if I can apply a minimum of pressure. If I don't apply enough pressure, I'm gonna get this, right? So it has to be just enough to get a note. You can back pressure off to sort of try to find that delicate kind of limit. So, and as I said, it's easier for me. It's just a mental thing. I have, in the beginning of a session, I'm a bit less stressed, and I feel like I have the room to sit with that kind of chord for a little while, even though, you know, the rewards might feel like they're pretty far away, but it's still motivated. So that's just one example. But how I used to do it during several years was to use the first warm-up session, or the first part of my practice session, to play legato and play it super slowly and super soft. I would almost do it to the point where I would feel that my hands and fingers would just fall asleep. That's sort of the feeling I was going for, to try to relax my body in a way that I hadn't done before. I'm sure if someone is confident with yoga and meditation and that stuff, would fill me in here and explain, you know, how it's done, but I haven't done that. I've just done enough for it to be helpful on the guitar, you know, as far as relaxation goes. And I've realized that if I can find that kind of feeling where I am super relaxed to the point that it feels like my hand is going to fall asleep, then I know that I'm on a good path for it. And this is really the foundation for anything lead-wise that you play. I saw you worked on the 30 licks lesson, and 30 blues licks, and that there's a lot of lead playing in there, obviously. So this really applies to anything. It doesn't have to be strict legato where you know, don't use your right hand. So you know, if you can get that super relaxed and controlled and clean playing, it's gonna sound equally cool when you add some picking to it. Also, in some cases, you have to be a bit strained to get some picking attack. And by consciously relaxing my hand, I'm able to have a relaxed left hand, even though I have a somewhat strained right hand. In the ideal case would be to have relaxed both hands, obviously. But as I said, some cases where you do, you have to strain a little bit. So I'm just rambling a little bit here, so you can see where I'm coming from in terms of why I choose this part for warming up. Now, there are many ways you could go about this. Perhaps you function in a way that you're aware that you have to study some theory. It would be helpful for you, but you can't really push yourself to do it because you find it so boring. Then maybe you need to use a more of an aggressive approach and sort of tell yourself that, hey man, I'm not allowed to, you know, play my favorite rock and roll riffs or whatever it is you want to play until I've gone through the C major scale in the 7 positions, whatever. So that could also be a way to sort of force yourself into a more structured routine. However, you obviously do need a little bit of help, I would suppose, with regarding the content of your practice session, and that's hard for me to get into the specifics. So that's why I'm trying to be, you know, take a step back and be a bit more general in my, you know, information here. You mentioned a lot of things there. You're looking for, you know, warm-up, strengthening, coordination, alternate picking, exploring fretboard, etc. Well, I think we covered some of that now. In terms of strength, I would like to say that strength is almost never a good thing in terms of guitar playing. There are some strength-related phenomena that you need to be aware of, and generally, if we have the choice between using weak muscles like our finger muscles, which are kind of weak if you compare to our biceps, if you have the choice between those two, then you should use as much bicep as possible and as little finger muscle as possible. So, for example, this is applicable to like when you bend, add vibrato, should be working with your whole arm. It's very common to see beginners just work with their fingers, and you know, you're never going to get control and the desired effect out of that technique. The same is valid for you know, if you bend downwards, you can use your leverage point here, and so you don't have to work that hard with the finger muscle. Instead, it again goes back to your arm. There are some applications as far as picking goes as well, because you have the choice of generating picking movement from, you know, from your wrist, from your joint, from your arm, and even from your shoulder. That's a different topic though, so it's, you know, but it's something to be aware of. So strength is not usually a very good thing unless you're thinking about using your strongest muscles that are already strong in comparison to the strength you really need for the guitar. It's not a, we're not doing anything super, it's not weightlifting. So chances are you already have enough muscles to do this. You need to coordinate them, and you need to use the right ones. So that's just a few words about strength. Coordination, pretty much any coordination exercise is going to involve you playing below your comfort speed. I think this is essential to coordinate properly. There's no chance you can work up great coordination if you're, being on the verge of your, speed limit. So, coordination, you get that for free if you do a proper warm-up where you're way below your comfort speed and you're thinking about being relaxed. And there are a lot of things that come for free with coordination. Cleanliness, control, tone, all that goes into coordination. So it's an important topic, and it's great that you mention it. Alternate picking, a super big topic as well. It's a cool topic. I would say definitely suitable for warm-up. Actually, I would say that for me, when I practice alternate picking, I would say 80% of the time it could actually be a warm-up because I'm doing it so slowly. So it's important to realize that to make this work, you have to use motions that will convert to higher speeds. So just because you're playing slowly doesn't mean that you're practicing for playing fast. It could mean that, but that depends on what you're doing. So let me give you an example. So if I'm practicing alternate picking and I'm doing I'm exaggerating here, that kind of thing is going to be hard to get up to tempo. However, if you're practicing the same notes and the same exercise like this, then you're practicing a sort of machine-like, very small and synchronized movement that will definitely allow you to move up to those faster speeds. So that's something to consider as well. You could spend a lot of time warming up, and it would be great exercise for playing fast, and and all of a sudden the limit between warming up and just practicing in general gets a little less obvious. In fact, you could have a great practice session and fool somebody that you're actually warming up because you're doing everything so relaxed and slowly. So it's also worth mentioning that if you're relying a lot on these kind of slow practicing, then you might want to try a speed burst once in a while to sort of show your hands and body what your target and aim is. Especially for picking. If you're practicing like this, that's all good. It allows you to really think of moving things around, coming up with variation and all that. So it's good stuff. But if your goal is to be able to do, you have to try just being a bit faster as well. Although I would still recommend you spend a majority of your time working on the slow speeds, because that's how you get excellent technique and synchronization. Cool, so I'm just going to stop now in order not to overwhelm you. So I hope this has been at least a possible opening for new thoughts and discussions. That was my purpose with this video. And if you want to be more specific and show us some video of your playing, that definitely helps us giving you more specific feedback. So welcome again, Dan, to GMC. I hope to see more of you. Thank you. Bye.